Welcome back. It's Friday afternoon. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this is a Celtic State of Mind. I am delighted this afternoon to be joined by Jim Orr. There's a little old school retro tinge to today's bulletin, as it was last Friday, Jim, but I'm quite liking it. Getting a wee catch up with you like we used to do in the old days.
2 Fridays in a row. We'll see what the chat room make of that.
We'll see what the chat room. What do you make of that? Loads to talk about. We are going to be, look at the tagline, we are going to be discussing the situation Celtic finds itself in with regards to our nearest rivals, our nearest challengers, our city rivals, and what has developed over the last 24 hours. What does it mean to Celtic, though? We'll focus on the Celtic angle on this one, Jim, because the big thing about a Celtic state of mind, and we set out our stall early doors, we've never focused, we've never been, going for that clickbait, let's talk about the opposition. There's been plenty to talk about. Now and again, it will come in, particularly when we're playing them. But yesterday's news of big issues at Ibrox and the construction works being delayed. The statement itself says throughout August. Who knows how long that's going to take? Mm-hmm. It's set the kind of jungle drums. And you look at the forums and the online, and there's a lot of rumours flying about. My biggest concern here, Jim, isn't about Ibrox or Rangers. It's about how we react sometimes to this situation. Do not become complacent. Don't change your approach to your signing policy, how strong you need to be going into the new season, even if they're going to have a massive setback.
Yeah, I think it's two different things here. I think rather than talk about them, I think if it was us, what would social media be like today? If you said, if yesterday Peter Lowe came out and said we're going to shut the Lisbon Lions stand for the month of August, people were absolutely ballistic. What do you mean you're going to shut the Lisbon Lions stand for a month? A minimum month? What do you mean a minimum a month? And then obviously social media being social media and people, adding 1 and 1 and getting 3, what have you, that playing games at Hampden, maybe not at Murrayfield, and I saw something at St James Park and stuff like that. So I wouldn't underestimate the inconvenience that's going to cause, because again, I like yourself, I don't like to look at other teams. I just think if it was us, if we're shutting the Lisbon Lions stand and you're a season ticket holder, or you're in the GB and that's the section that's getting shut, what happens next? Mm-hmm. No idea, And it's a bit odd that they're not maybe just playing at Ibrox anyway with the other 3 stands. I think the Copeland Road holds about 8,000, maybe something like that, and they've got maybe 50,000 capacity. So could you? I don't know how many season tickets they hold, but something more than 42,000. So somebody would be inconvenienced, but is that not the lesser of the two evils? If it was happening to us, would you not say, well, shut the Lisbon Lions stand, finish what you're doing? You're going to inconvenience a lot of people, but hey-ho, that's a better bet than having to decant to somewhere else, be it Hampden, be it Murrayfield, be it St James's Park, or wherever, because the inconvenience that's going to cause fans, travelling, that's got cost, all your hospitality stuff that you've got set up on the day, all the other tons of stuff that we don't know anything about that happens on match day, and all the income that comes with that, it's huge. And as I said, if we're looking at it from a Celtic point of view, with a Celtic state of mind, boom, boom, we'd have said, what do you mean they're shutting the Lisbon Lions stand? How did this happen? And I think that what they're doing, I think, from my understanding, they're trying to build another 600 seats in the disabled section. So, hats off to them. That's a laudable thing to do. But as you know yourself, as everyone knows, that when you start doing building work of any nature, you're always a bit wary when you lift the carpets and look at the floorboards and think, oh dear, I shouldn't have started this. So there could be a bit of that going on. And again, you can't speculate. And I think things will become maybe a bit more clear over the next, couple of weeks or so, what's going to happen. But certainly if I was a season ticket holder over there, I'd be going ballistic about how this came to be. And the old kind of, what's the phrase, prepare to fail, fail to prepare. Whatever that phrase is, whatever way around that is, that knowing this, what was going to happen, then one would have thought that at that point in time to say, if we run into difficulties, we've got a plan. And to have announced this, 6 weeks before the start of the season, and they're going to be scrambling about, and it looks like they don't. Maybe they do have a plan. Who knows? But what was reported yesterday was like, we're looking at options, and you thought, you're a bit late looking for options. Surely you'd have, however it's came to pass, this hold up, or whether it's a steal, or whatever it is, again, if this is what they were going to do, that's a laudable thing to do. You're going to do it in the close season. Of course, you're going to do it in the close season. But if it does hit a snag along the way sometime, we've got a plan B, and plan B is this.
Mm-hmm.
And we have it in place. And we know we're going to inconvenience fans, but hey-ho, we are where we are, and this is what we're going to do. I find it surprising that, again, if it was Peter Law yesterday saying, we're shutting the Lisbon lines, and it's a bit vague what's going to happen next, I think the Celtic social media would be in meltdown today. And the media would be going mad. The manager would be going mad as well, because what are the options here? Are you going to play at this kind of neutral venue? And I mean, they should take care of whoever they play. I mean, if they're playing St Johnstone's and Rosscar, whoever they're playing, apart from us, they'll take care of those teams no matter where it is. But it does give a slight advantage to other teams. It inconveniences the fans quite a lot. Or do you switch the games to play them at home later in the season? And that's a huge disadvantage.
Yeah.
You're never going to go for that. You're never going to volunteer to go to, even though it's Ross County where they lost last year, you're not going to volunteer for that. So before a ball's kicked, it's a massive own goal. From a Celtic point of view, I think we just concentrate on what we're meant to do. My concern, and I've said this all during last season, it was a hard watch last season. And I think I know that Graham Souness, that a bit of a kind of slagging, by saying the gap's not that big. I don't think the gap's that big. I think the scores last season showed you the gap's not that big. In 5 games that we played, 1 draw, 4 wins, and the 4 wins were all by 1 goal. And we're kind of hanging on at the end of those 4 games. And those are the games that matter. So if we go through next season winning 4 out of 5 games and drawing the other one, brilliant. But we've a lot of work to do. And the fact that we've lost the goalkeeper, I know you've over this before a million times, we've lost the goalkeeper. And even if we sign Bernardo, we're no different from last season. We're a goalkeeper down. So I think there's a huge amount of work to be done. And I think also the fact that if you get back to maybe after the January transfer window where we were disappointed in what happened, but with 70, and in the announcement it's made that we've got the guts of 70 million in the bank. Mm. And then you're saying, if we don't win this league, it's potentially the most embarrassing league campaign ever in the history of the club, given the disparity in the finances. And I think that we're talking about the new Champions League money coming in, maybe Matt O'Reilly. You've talked about maybe bringing in over 30 million quid before you can get to Matt O'Reilly. Yeah. We have to double that. And if we don't win the league next season, that would be doubly embarrassing from last season. So we have to, one assumes we've got all our work done, it's all in place, all our ducks in a row, and everybody's going to go bang, 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 and get all these players in that the manager wants. And I wouldn't criticise until we get to the end of August, because that's when the window slams shut, as they say. So at this stage of the season, you're looking back in last season thinking what was good, what was bad, what was indifferent. Looking forward to next season. It still is early days. The transfer window only opened last Friday, wasn't it? Last Friday. The Euros are on. Yeah. So there'll be lots of negotiations to do. One would hope, I say hope, that we've got these ducks in a row, that we're not scrambling about, that we don't wait till the last week of August and don't get our targets and end up going for second choice, third choice targets and paying over the odds to get them. Because if we do that, to me, that would be just as much as an embarrassment as the announcement that was made yesterday about the works at Ibrox. So we can't let that happen. We really can't let that happen. But I won't say too much until we get to 31st of August, because, as I said, one assumes ducks are in a row as we speak, and it's a matter of just hitting buttons and off we go. And he gets the players that he wants to get. How much he pays for them and all that stuff, we'll come to that whenever. But again, the question was the announcement yesterday. I think if we just think, what if it was us? How would we be feeling? And I think there's lots of complexities to that particular story. Even if it's just that, even if it's just Steele's late, we're out for August, and even if it's just only that, I think there's huge complications in there and huge complexity. If it goes further than that, dear, so.
Yeah, and the big thing I want to point out here, this isn't a Rangers-led headline. This is a situation where something has happened to our nearest rivals. How does it affect Celtic? And my big concern, and it has been for a while, because you only need to look at last season, Jim, where I think complacency can creep in. And if you think your rival isn't that strong, and then you approach a transfer window as we did last summer with that in mind, you're basically going to underperform in the window, and we've done that already. This news over the last 24 hours, you're going to have your online fun with it, Jim. That's just part and parcel, the banter and the crack and all this kind of stuff, right? The Lego box of Ibrox and all that, some pieces missing. Oh, that's just being a football fan. That's great. But we're talking about how it might impact in terms of fixtures, for example, how it might impact the fact that Champions League riches are massive to any club in Scottish football. You just need to look at the league table of prize-winning money at the end of the campaign, Jim, and we were sitting there at circa 35 million quid, and you go down to Livingston at the bottom of the table, and it's somewhere around 1.5 million. But then you look at the domestic money that you're making, and the disparity is nowhere near as large as it is down south, for example, right? And so I think, when you win a treble, you end up winning in the region of 8.5, 9 million quid or something like that in Scottish football. But if you then get into the Champions League, get a win, get a draw, you're going into a different galaxy when it comes to money. So obviously Rangers have qualifiers to play. They are meant to be playing their qualifier at home at Ibrox. That's going to be affected. And then the knock-on of that is the financial aspect. And this is the thing. Peter Lamont asks the question on Facebook. See, we do take comments from Facebook as well. Have we financially broken Rangers? There are going to be repercussions, Jim. Like you say, you can't fulfil fixtures, right? So you remember the comments that were made about Dundee with the waterlogged pitch just 10 weeks ago. If you can't fulfil fixtures, like you say, in terms of a contingency, if you go into any kind of construction work, you need to have that backup. If you don't, you might face a situation like this. You need to register the stadium you'll be playing at. Now, the date I was looking at yesterday was the 1st of June. Whether or not that can be moved or waived under the circumstances, I do not know. But if Rangers are looking for another stadium, I've heard all the suggestions as well. People say, oh, Hampden. Well, Hampden Park has got a number of events at it anyway that are already scheduled for the summer. And then once, for example, Pink plays at Hampden Park, there is a process of, replenishing the turf, for example, Jim. So it's not a guarantee, is it?
No, plus I live near Hampden Park, so that's out straight away. I mean, you're not going to countenance that. Of course you're not. I don't think the comment that came in and said that I don't think we have done anything. I think this has been self-inflicted.
Yeah. And
that's the issue. And I think, I've just a glance at social media this morning, but I'd imagine, again, you bring it back to us. If this had happened to us, you wouldn't be saying, well, what happened to Ibrox impacted us? We did it ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We did it ourselves. What you have to have is, and people have had a go at Peter Law and the board and all this kind of stuff. One thing actually they're very good at is the actual governance of the club. It's actually really good. It goes too far risk averse for I think most fans, but we watch what we do most of the time, and we hope something like this isn't round the corner for us. We might do something like this and all of a sudden that kind of blows up in our face. So we can't be complacent in terms of what we're doing. In terms of this particular issue, I think that's completely self-inflicted. I think the work's been done for good reasons. Increasing the disabled section, that's a laudable thing to do. That's fine. But they should have had some sort of contingency plan. And you don't know about all these rules and regulations that are kicking about. You said the 1st of June there. I have no idea what rule that is and how you get around that and how that's meant to work. And the thing about the Champions League thing is actually quite important because Ibrox, like Celtic Park, in the Champions League night, it's absolutely rocking. So to give a chance, huge asset, to give you a chance, the best possible chance into the Champions League, you want to play the games at Ibrox, and they've been denied that because of a self-inflicted action. So again, as I said, the kind of fail to prepare to fail thing, that's all self-inflicted. I don't think we've done anything here. I think we have to look after our own business, and that's down to charge. That's again what I said is a lot of these things that we don't know anything about. How to run a football club, how to run a stadium, what's behind that, what happens in match days, dealing with the police, dealing with health and safety, dealing with all this kind of stuff. And that's where you have to be on the ball. And the good thing about Celtic, I think, is the fact that we don't hear very much of that. So to me, that kind of means that all that stuff has been taken care of. But it's the stuff you don't see above the surface until something goes wrong, and then you say, why did that happen? Because I think there are tens, hundreds of things that are happening every single day at Celtic Park and Ibrox and the other football ground, whereby if you don't take care of that, that could come back to bite you at some point in time. And Celtic Park now is like 30 years old. The South Stand is like, 60 years old. Actually, I tried to get a relocation to the South Stand, but there's no relocation to the South Stand for some bizarre reason. Anyway, That's a bit of an aside there. So Celtic Parks will need ongoing maintenance. Celtic need to keep their eye on the road. We need to make sure that maintenance is done. And the beauty of having all this money is there's no excuse now to make sure that that work's not done. In a different time, in a different age, you might have said, well, we should be doing that work, but we don't have the money to do it, so we're not going to do it. And we know that will get worse in the future, and therefore now there's no excuses. And the money that we've got, this, pick a number between 70 and 140 million. We should have a plan for that. That may be not a 1 year plan, that could be like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan. It's how we're going to use that money so that in 10 years' time, we only have maybe £10 million. What was the plan to get down to £10 million? A sensible plan that involves has been dominant, hopefully, within domestic, hopefully good runs in Europe. But in terms of the spending of that money, I said before in the podcast, we can't spend that money. It's impossible to spend that money in the short term. So what is the long-term plan? I don't know, but it'd be good to know, actually. Not in too much detail, but just in general terms, we have a lot of money and we're planning to do X, Y, and Z, because the fans will be thirsting to spend that money in players, and yet, and a chunk of that should be, but you can't be, you can't go too gung ho. You can push the boat a wee bit, but not too far, and just have a plan. It'd be good to have the plan, a plan to make sure that what's just happened yesterday doesn't happen to us.
It's a great shout, because as you say, it's 30 years now since the rebuilding of Celtic Park, and until the pre-season, I took that wander around Paradise every Monday morning. And there are certain parts of the stadium that are looking tired. Now, that's just aesthetics. Obviously, you would need to get in the experts, Jim, to look at various structural aspects of the stadium to make sure that everything is sound. And if not, like you say, there's money there to invest in that. We've already started the investment up at Barrafield for youth development and the women's team as well. So that's underway. But like you say, shows the plan. There's loads that could be done up at Celtic Park.
As you said, if there's bits that are tired, why are they tired? They shouldn't be tired. They should be state of the art because the money's there. Different for our skin, different with no money. And that's when you start to cut. You cut corners on things. There is no way we should be cutting corners. And even if they came out tomorrow and said, see all that money we've got, we're going to spend £5 million and tidying up all the tired bits around Celtic Park. Fair play. That's fine. Don't have an issue with that. So but you need to spend money in players as well.
Absolutely, Jim. And this is the thing. I remember the argument speaking to someone at the club about the fabled, the museum and all this kind of stuff, fitting that into the tour and a hotel and all that. And one of the biggest aspects of that was if we spend £3 million on that, fans would much rather we spent it on a striker at that time. I'm going back a few years ago now. So I get that frustration, and there is a balance, but we've got enough to do both, like you say. What they done to the front of the stadium with the Celtic Way, absolutely tremendous, but let's get the whole stadium and the footprint up to that kind of level. And again, I visited Anfield last year, had not been to Anfield since 1990, believe it or not. Went down last year and I was blown away with the footprint of the stadium, Jim. It was absolutely stunning. Everywhere you looked, they were celebrating their history in such a way. You're talking murals, wall displays, statues, plaques, every tile, every brick. You could just tell it had been done, and it had been done fairly recently to a really, really high standard. That's the kind of thing that I want to see at Celtic Park. And as you say, we're in a good position for it. But again, before we move on to other aspects of Celtic discussion, one being something JP and I spoke about yesterday, do you shell out £8 million on Adamida? Get the comments flying into the comments section. I put it out on the socials this morning. I'm going to share some of the thoughts. I would say it's divided right down the middle. And also, we're going to be looking at Scotland and our performance at the Euros, because we don't have any representatives with any of the other nations, but we'll talk about Scotland. And Jim, of course, is a big fan. There's going to be lots of transfer rumours, gossip, speculation, and we will cover that once it looks as though it's a serious goer with regards to players coming in. Before we move on from the stadium issues, though, Jim, it has given me the opportunity to bring up one of our favourite subjects, Fergus McCann. Wee Fergus the Bonnet. He came to Scotland, and the work he did was incredible when you consider the fact that there was no delay, Jim, right? And so you come along and you're looking around Celtic Park when he took over in March 1994. And it was in a, what would you say, a dilapidated state? Do you think it was getting to that point where, you know, major work was screaming out for a number of years? They put seats in the jungle. You might remember that for a season or two.
It was a death trap.
There you go. I was trying to be polite. There you go. Right in.
Fallen Hillsborough. It was a death trap.
It was a death trap.
And you can't get away from that. I mean, the game that fans and still talk about to this day was the Dundee game when they won the league in '88.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was, I mean, the very first time on the podcast, whenever that was one of the stories that started to tell that's why I bought a season ticket after that game, because, and that's the thing, if you go back, you know, whatever that was, 36 years or so, and tell people under the age of 40 or something how things worked back then, they think you're talking about sort of medieval Dickensian times in terms of how things worked. So the capacity is meant to be 60,000. The South Stand, what's that hold? It holds about 8,000, doesn't it? Something like that. Right. So there's going to be 52,000 people standing. Conservatively, people think there was maybe 72,000 people standing at the game. And there was maybe about 10,000 in the stand because people were standing in the stand,
mm-hmm.
you know. So, and I went to the stand usually, you know, I would get to the game at 2:30. Usually, you went in the stand, you can pick the best seat in the rear south stand, as it is now at 2:30. Just wander in, pay the gate, £2, £3, whatever it was, and you sit there, and that's it. And we thought, Dundee game, last game, the game to win the league, you know, maybe we should go about 2:00 rather than 2:30. So you go at 2:00 and you realise, hold on, it's going to be busy. And we sat right at the back, very back row of the back of the south stand. And at that point, people were standing. Nobody was sitting because they couldn't sit. There's too many people. And then all the kind of stairways were people standing. You look at the jungle and there's people spilling over to the track. Right, talk about health and safety. There you go. And why was it that? Because there was no computerised turnstiles back in the day. So whatever crowd the board wanted to tell you, that's what it was. You know, and you would go to games, and every club did this, so it's not really like a Celtic thing, whereby you go to a game and you look around, you think, 50,000 today, 32,512. You know, they'd always give it some sort of exact thing as if they knew exactly what it was. But yeah, I mean, concrete steps, bits of concrete missing, barriers, people crushed against barriers, a goal scored, everyone sways down, and all that kind of stuff. Toilets were just, you know, if you look at junior ground just now, you played at St Rocks. You know, whatever the toilets are like at St Rocks, I'm pretty sure that's what it was back at Celtic Park. Because I'm going to a junior game at
there's some good pictures appearing on the old socials recently. I think Willie Collo shares them. And for some strange reason, someone has taken pictures of the jungle toilets, Jim.
So, yeah, I mean, it was a complete death trap. So for Fergus to come in, again, the man did what it says on the tin. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And that's what he did. And everything was to plan, and everything came in on plan. And nobody would mess about with Fergus. And that's the thing that, you know, every I dotted, T crossed, whatever it was, and brought the thing on time. It's lauded by... It's one thing for the fans to say this is a great stadium, but when the world's greatest players, your Messi's and Tony Kroos and these kind of guys talk about Celtic Park atmosphere, hard to beat that, then you realise what he's done, because he's got that kind of bowl shape, whereas Ibrox a bit more kind of box, linear kind of type of park, whereas Park is a bowl and it just sweeps.
Mm-hmm.
And I always remember I went to the front stand one game not long after the whole thing was completed, and I sat close to the pitch, which is rubbish, obviously, just legs. But that's the place in a match day when you look at the whole sweeping thing. It's just enormous. It's just absolutely massive. So, yeah, hats off. And hopefully we've got people there just now that make sure that we don't take our eye off the ball when it comes to the stadium and what's involved in maintaining a modern stadium. Maintaining and improving a modern stadium, because you have to improve it all the time. People talk about, well, maybe we should, you know, do the south stand and bring it up to 70,000 for that. Well, that's a cost-effective thing, I'm not so sure. But maybe that's a conversation for another day. But see the point you talk about the footprint. That's something I'd like to see. Again, what you would do with the money. There's lots of space around about Celtic Park, and that's the thing again about when you win the league, as we do tend to do that, and then the Gallagate gets swamped. I'm not a big fan of that. I think that should be confined to within the environs of Celtic Park.
Yeah, imagine.
You go in there, you build some temporary, pubs and food outlets, and Celtic make money from that. Surround the whole thing, have party atmosphere, balloons, and all that kind of stuff. Do that. Don't wait. For the fans to descend the Gallagate and then the Glasgow Council to be annoyed that the fan. You make the first move. We'll do this. Not to be too arrogant to think this will be every season we're going to have a party here, but when we do have something to when we do have a bit of success, when we celebrate, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to just environs of Celtic Park, around the Celtic Way. We're going to have temporary food outlets, drink outlets, da merchandise stores, Acsom, all that kind of stuff. Holds up his glad at that point in time.
Mugs.
There you've got the money. That's the kind of things. And I think again, as long as you're not buying players, I think most fans would say, well, that's good. That's a good thing you're doing. We can see why you're doing that. And obviously there's talk about building the new standing section next to me, which is not a good idea, so don't do it. But they're saying if there's a demand for that, then fair enough, and that costs a bit of money. And that's all part of the plan, then great. That's all part of the plan. So what was the question?
I think, Jim, what you've said there is a great point. I would throw in a few others. I think a fan zone or a number of fan zones around about the stadium, you use that for the celebratory aspects of the end of season successes, but on a match day, they would also be utilised by 60,000 fans every second week. So absolute no-brainer for me. You've got to upgrade the ticket office, 100%. Superstore could be 3 times the size that it is.
You look at the queue outside the Kerrydale Suite every game.
Every game.
There's a massive queue outside the Kerrydale Suite. And everyone's just standing about, and that's an untapped market. And we talked about the SFA last week, not being too clued up. There's an open goal, basically. How are you going to get these guys money? They're there, they're out there. Just be a bit more inventive, a bit more.
So many of them want to make a day of it, Jim. It's not just a case of getting there, sitting on your seat, jumping your car and going home.
Have a big screen showing old games, Celtic TV,
the whole thing. The
whole kit and caboodle. Build some sort of marquee kind of stuff in case the weather's not too clever, stuff like that. I mean, it shouldn't be up to me to make these suggestions. People are getting paid a lot of money, some serious money. The chief executive is on, and that's what we need. That's why I think we need different people in charge of the club. We need captains of industry, people to come in there who have seen it and done it. And I mean, no disrespect to the CEO just now, but he's a lawyer. That's not what you want. I'm an accountant. I don't want an accountant been the CEO of Celtic. We've had one for a number of years. And that's why I think we are not in the position we are just now with things like that. You want a mover and shaker, somebody's self-made man, self-made woman who's succeeded in business, all the contacts, multi-millionaire, whatever it is, and just does things. I think they're too passive. I think we're far too passive.
Entrepreneurial flair. I mean, the other couple of things, going to throw them in while we're on the subject. The Clover, build a bandstand every match day, get a live band on that. For sure, that would work. And then down at Janefield, the tunnel underneath the North Stand, Jim?
Yeah.
The walls, you've got 32 blank canvases there. Fill them with history. Fill them with history. Get the proper lighting in there. It's going to look sensational. But the big thing, final point on Wee Fergus, because we love talking about Wee Fergus, and I don't know if you've noticed, but Jim's got a play coming up called If You Know the History. Jim, there's your opportunity for a plug.
Shameless plug, yeah. And if you know history, starring Acsom's very own Jerry Taylor, best friend of Brendan Rodgers. It tells the story of 1988, we just talked about that there, to 1995. So the bad years that we had, and they were bad years. So people have a go at the Celtic Daz, but the Celtic Daz lived through those terrible seasons. So the 7 seasons covered in 90-minute play. It's a comedy, but it's comedy.
It's got to be. It's got to be a comedy.
Also tells the story of what actually happened, and it's worth having we mentioned that wee chat we had during the week, that wee debate we put out there.
I think so, Jim.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah, because I thought, right, this is a subject, right? If you want to ask me about the Quality Street Gang, I'm probably covered it in my research.
You're the man.
I thought, this is a subject, I'll ask Jim Orr this question, and he'll be able to give me the answer.
Of course I will. So, anyway, The play's actually called, and if you know the history, ? Because a wee spin on things, a wee different, because it's a comedy and you'll love it. If you've seen Ben like Bertie, you can have know what to expect. It's a bit bonkers. Anyways, having done all the research for the play and read all the books again, and having lived through it, having been a kind of member of a supporters organisation, I knew some of the characters that were involved at the time, and anyway, blah blah blah. So I've always been confused about an aspect of what happened at the takeover day, and the reason that I had this conversation with Paul during the week there was because of the sad passing of John Keane. He will go down as a very important person in Celtic's history, without the question mark. Right? Because John Keane stepped up and paid the £1 million that kept Celtic from going out of business. Okay. Then, 8 minutes from midday, Fergus McCann paid the £1 million that saved Celtic from going out of business. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, so I have two different stories here. So, on the one hand, the story I've read in various books attributed to Kevin Kelly, who said that the bank wanted, they had agreed that they would pay the bank by midday on the Friday, say, and this was the Wednesday. But the bank wouldn't entertain that. They wanted the money by the Thursday. And he said, and Brian and John Keane took care of that. So the Brian being Brian Dempsey. So John Keane must have paid the £1 million to the bank on a Thursday. But yet Fergus paid £1 million to the bank 8 minutes to midday on the Friday. So I'm not sure, is that a different £1 million? Is it the same £1 million? Did John Keane pay the bank and the bank held on to it until Fergus got there and then gave him the £1 million back? I mean, John Keane saved the club, absolutely, no doubt. And then Fergus went stratospheric, whatever. But I've always been confused about that £1 million, about who did what and why. Did the bank already have the £1 million before Fergus gave the £1 million and that deadline? So I've always been confused with that. And then it turns out that Paul John Dykes is equally as confused and asked me the question. I said, funny she'd ask me that. And in fact, the excellent series about the battle to save Celtic on the Celtic Exchange, I can name another podcast here, the excellent Tino, who had some fantastic interviews, and me.
Just 9 fantastic interviews, Jim. You were one of them.
8 great interviews plus me. I said to you must know the answer to this, and he didn't know the answer either. So nobody knows. So anyone out there, just to clarify, the £1 million, how did that work? Anyway,
I know.
Point is plays coming in October to Webster's. Covering the 7 seasons, which is a bit of a challenge because there's so many things that you could put in there that you had to take back out because there just wasn't enough space to cover that, and they weren't very funny. So it has to be funny stuff. So coming soon. In fact, got my poster here all primed. When Paul John Dykes says it, I'm going to just do that. But
I've seen a lot of people with that poster, a lot of ex-Celts with that poster. But that was the thing. Absolutely not trying to take any of the romanticism away from the story, and certainly not trying to do an injustice to the late John Keane. But like you say, you've got that story of them rushing up to the bank. David Lowe was with Fergus McCann rushing up to the bank 8 minutes, and it was receivership, as it was called. It wasn't administration. They were going to go into receivership at the time. And then the John Keane £1 million. And then when I read the obituary during the week in the Times, the date they gave of the £1 million being lodged was September 94. So that was completely wrong.
That was rubbish.
And then it got me thinking, Jim, was it September 93? But then you showed me a passage in one of the books, which I've got virtue of you behind me. And Kevin Kelly said it was John Keane that paid the £1 million. So we need to know more. If you know more in the comments section, let us know. And like you say, you've already mentioned.
If you know the history, see that.
If you do.
If you know the history, we need to answer that question.
Yeah, tell us. Tell us
first.
Tiny details. These things are important. I'm going to be on a Celtic Exchange big end of season quiz on Sunday night.
Right.
So what I'm going to do, right, is I'll have WhatsApp open, and whenever the questions come in, I want the Celtic State of Mind team to help me out. I am going to be like that guy on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Well, you do a podcast, so you get a chat room.
All that stuff. Yeah.
That's what I do. Do a podcast same time you get a chat room. All the guys just pile in.
I just pile in. Tell us the answers. We cannot be defeated.
It's not called cheating. It's not called cheating. Just to integrity, sporting integrity, all that stuff. Just like clarify.
Utilising technology, I would call it. Okay. Ian Roy, great to see you. Badly need a new main stand. Yeah, we spoke about this. I think we've done a a wee calculation on the back of a fag packet, which would suggest that the cost would take 17 years to pay back if it was to wash its own
and the
face.
people I've spoken to who are in the main stand say that, yeah, it's pretty dilapidated and what have you. But I was still keen to go there, but there's no seats apparently. So, but yeah, it still needs a bit of work done. But as long as it's safe, that's the main thing now. Just make sure that it's safe.
Absolutely. And by the way, when another point you made about moving stadiums, obviously the Fergus McCann plan, as everything he did, was all set out in advance, etc. Fee agreed. So for a whole season, was it what was it, $600,000? $500,000?
Yeah.
And then there was all a list. There was a whole list of things Celtic couldn't do whilst at the stadium. One of which was the flying of a foreign flag. Is what they called tricolour.
What, like Russia? I mean,
I know. For some strange reason, Capello used to fly the flag of Greece, and no one has ever been able to tell me why. But when I was doing
some of the ports, maybe, don't know.
Possibly, the flag of Greece at Capello back in the 50s. But yes, if they're going to go to another stadium, it's also going to cost them a pretty penny, that's for sure. And isn't Don Mackay something to do with the rugby up at Murrayfield and Willie Hockey up at Hampden? I'm not sure they're going to get a place to play. They might have to go to Glasgow Green. Maybe take that.
Can I just butt in there? To be plug. Tomorrow is actually the Walking Football Scottish Cup. And I know I go to Walking Football quite a lot. About 800 people are coming at tomorrow, 800 players coming down, male and female, a whole range of age groups, over 50s, 60s, 65s, 70s, whatever. So if you've ever thought of playing walking football, but you think, nah, I'm too young to play that and it sounds rubbish, and you're in the vicinity of Glasgow Green tomorrow, it's on all day. It starts about 10, it'll finish about 5 o'clock. Wander down to Glasgow Green and you'll see how competitive it is and how enjoyable it is. And unfortunately, I'm injured, so I'm not playing. But I'll be down there to watch it. Tommy Sheridan will be playing, who's a big advocate now of walking football, who's a cynic at the start. He kind of waved his hand at me, don't be daft, too young. He loves it. So if Tommy loves it, you can't get a bigger endorsement than that.
It's his team, won it 2 years running, no, Jim.
He's been the captain, and they went to Portugal and won a tournament. He plays for Pollock, and that's how much it's expanded. It's the fastest growing sport in the country is walking football, because it hits the demographics of the over 50s and over 60s and now over 65s like me, who are that baby boomer generation who, unlike our fathers and grandfathers, if they were 65 back in the 50s and 60s, they had the tweed jacket on and sitting by the fires smoking a pipe, whereas we're out there playing football, highly competitive, really well organised, strips and good goals and AstroTurf pitches and all that kind of stuff. So it's brilliant, and I can't endorse it enough. And it's also not just for the serious people. It's got loads of health benefits and lots of social benefits. A lot of the guys who play are living on their own, or they've had health issues, strokes and heart attacks, whatever, and they don't have to play that. There's high intensity and low intensity. The thing tomorrow will be mostly high intensity. There's a couple of non-competitive leagues going on as well. But the low intensity stuff, which is all over the country just now, that's for people who just want a wee bit of exercise, a bit of companionship, a bit of socialism, socialization.
You said socialism.
That was Tommy. I know, it's just mental. Tommy, socialism. Hey, socialization. So I can't endorse it enough. So if you're on that week in a fence thinking, maybe try this thing, and you're in the Glasgow Green area, wander into which you'll be pleasantly surprised, believe me.
Go and have a look. Aye. And eventually, Jim, you will convince me to get involved as well. Let's have a look through some of the comments. As I say, do we sign Ida for £8 million? What has your thoughts been on the Euros, and in particular, the Celtic contingent and the Scotland team? We were standing up yesterday, Jim, for, in particular, Tony Ralston from the Switzerland game, and we had to stand up for Callum McGregor after the Germany humbling. And sometimes you've got to do that, because my chat yesterday, and this might go out as a wee clip on the socials as well, is I do feel that they do hold us to a different standard, these pundits. And I was talking about Souness and Neil McCann and their criticism of Tony Ralston and McGregor. Now, a few people in the comments last night says, Paul, Ralston's no good enough, get over it, it was a terrible pass. Right, I thought, he could have crumbled at that moment, Jim, having made that mistake. and it showed a real character to have a decent second half. That was my take on it.
I mean, I love Tony Ralston. I love what he's about. I love how he's stuck it. I mean, he's a player of, I don't mean this way, it's going to say limited ability, but he's a top class professional, but he's not as good as others, you know. And he's stuck at it, and he's had a number of loans, but he's still come back. And Ange's first season, he was outstanding. One of the reasons we won the league was Tony Ralston. His performances, his goals, his assists, Ross County, you can forget that. So, and he's stuck at it. And he's played second fiddle to Juranovic when he came in and Alistair Johnson, but he's still stuck at it. But the thing I said last week, because I can remember things, was that the spine of the team's not good enough. We don't have a top goalkeeper, we don't have a good centre-backs, don't have a good striker. So Tony's come in there and he's like third choice right back, you know, and that goalkeeper, those two centre-backs, that centre-forward wouldn't get a game for Celtic. So, and you're playing the Germans. And last week, again, because unlike Graham, I can remember things, I was saying things like, is it a hide behind one couch or two couches before the game? It was a three coucher, it ended up. Because I said that I'd have been okay with a 3-goal deficit, no more than that, because from a confidence point of view, I also said it was like Celtic going to the Bernabeu, and coincidentally, it was the same score. So I'm not as harsh on the players at all, because I do realise I think there's quite a gulf in class. And Germany were pretty ruthless last week. And I just think that individually, collectively, we could have been... Sorry, Tony Ralston, I'm going off a bit of a tangent in the game. As far as Wednesday's game was concerned, he was 100% to blame for the goal. You can't dress it up in any other way. Yeah, Gilmore's pass and Hamley's pass. But you know, from a young age, you're told, if you're playing fullback and you're a bit unsure, don't play it inside, because that could be just, if I'm Tony Robotham, I don't want to do blast it, get it the road. To have done that was a silly thing to do. And if you combine that with Shaqiri and the quality that he's got, because 9 times out of 10 he'd get away with it, but because it's Shaqiri, bang. And I thought he was 100% to blame. But again, he showed that tremendous mental resolve that he's shown for the past 3 seasons at Celtic Park in big games. Didn't let it affect him. A lot of good tackles in the game. But he's a player of, that's not the right expression because it sounds really bad, limited ability. He's a person that's he's not top level, and Celtic need better than Tony Ralston. So if you're an international team where you've got the choice of any players you want, he's something a bit better than Tony, I think. But I admire what he does. In terms of the pundits, who cares at the end of the day? I mean, the Graham Souness one, not remembering Callum McGregor's name, either he genuinely didn't remember his name, and that's a red flag, thinking, hold on.
Yep.
You can't remember somebody's name. So maybe that's a medical thing. Who knows? If you genuinely can't remember somebody's name. I mean, if Alan Shearer's watching the game yesterday and couldn't remember Declan Rice's name forever, people say, hold on, it's Declan Rice. What do you mean you can't remember his name? I mean, one would assume these pundits sitting with all these notes in front of them. One would assume that...
You would hope they were.
You would hope they would make notes before the game, make notes during the game, and have them all just sitting there. And they had the two teams lined up.
I showed you my notes last week, didn't I?
Oh, you're just...
It was a scroll, and that was just for our bulletin.
You're the other end of the scale with that stuff. But I mean, if you can't remember Callum McGregor's name, what chances he got with the Serbs and the Slovakians and what have you? And what's the point of having him on if you can't remember his name? No. I think your Neil McCann's. I don't pay much attention to this because I think how they choose these pundits is bizarre. I talked about this before. Cammy Bell. I mean, no disrespect at all to Cammy Bell, but why is he on? why is he on? Apparently, because he's on Radio Clyde, and I recall I don't listen to the phone in on this, but if I'm back for the game and Radio Scotland stop at 5:30, I'm usually back about 5:30, but I maybe hear 5 minutes of Clyde, something like that. And Cammy Bell was on Radio Clyde. It's like Kenny Miller thing, the Neil McCann thing. These guys are on everywhere. But they talk to Cammy Bell and they say something like, well, Cammy, you've got the furthest to come. So this guy must live hundreds of miles away. And they have to get him in. And you're thinking, there was other guy that's in BBC Scotland, then Rory Loy.
I know.
No, what have we all got in common? Oh, no, what have we got in common? But why have you asked them? Surely, someone like Tom Boyd, who, or a Simon Donnelly, or a Jackie Mack. I don't mean to be biased, but I'll pick an Aberdeen player, I'll pick whoever it is, they're there. But back to the Tony Ralston thing, I just thought he showed tremendous mental courage the other night to come back from what was a mistake. And you make mistakes, and it's just unfortunate that it went to Shaqiri, and he's just deadly. But the thing about Scotland, and I think we covered this last week, it's bigger than the players that you play. It's the fact that the SFA are useless.
Oh, yeah.
And therefore, we've got a Kieran Tierney, we've got an Andy Robertson. We should have a team of Kieran Tierneys and Andy Robertsons, and we don't. And there's a myriad of reasons for that. But I think if you go back, again, we're looking at the Hungary game, we have to win to qualify. Since 1974, for those of my vintage, most tournaments we get to the last game and we need to win the last game to qualify. It's been ever thus. But if you go back, let's say 40 years or so, what would that be, 84-ish, something like that. Who were the major teams fighting for the league? Aberdeen, Dundee United, Celtic. That's your three teams that were competing for the league in those maybe 83, 84, 85 seasons, right? Who's the manager? Jock Stein. So you've got, at that point in time, Scotland's greatest ever manager. You could argue that whether it's Ferguson, but at that point in time, it's Jock Stein. So if you're Jock Stein and you're saying, right, who am I picking for the games? I'll go to Tannadice this week. Who's playing? Well, Malpass is playing, Hegarty's playing, Nary's playing, Sturrock's playing, Bannon's playing. There's five that you can think of. But all those Dundee United players are Scottish at that point in time. Mm-hmm. I'll go to Pittodrie the next week and watch Aberdeen, and I've got Leighton, Miller, McLeish, Strachan, Eric Black, Mark McGee, Neil Cooper, Neil Simpson. But all those players are Scottish. I'll go to Celtic Park the following week, and I've got Danny, I've got Big Roy, I've got Murdo, I've got Charlie Nick, I've got Tommy Barnes, I've got David Provan.
The Maestro.
I forgot the Maestro. Apart from Pat Bonner, all these guys are Scottish. So if you're Jock Stein in the space of 3 weeks, you go to 3 games and there's 30 players there you should have a think about. And that's before looking at England or Rangers or Hearts or anyone else. If you're Steve Clark and you're thinking, I'll go to Tannadice, I'll no bother. They're in the Championship and half their team are foreigners. I'll go to Pittodrie, well, they're the bottom 6. They're not very good. Half a team of foreigners. I'll go to Celtic Park. And if you look at the Celtic team, the end of last season there, who have we got? Callum, Greg Taylor, and Jamesy come in.
Yeah.
Get 3 players to go and watch. So compare that to maybe 30 players 40 years ago. And then you start asking, well, why is it taking the turn it's taken? And to me, it's a couple of reasons. One was foreign players coming in. What happened at Ibrox, where they started spending big money and everyone Pied Piper off followed suit.
We'll
just do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And then before you know it, Scottish kids are not getting a game for Scottish teams. And then there was a school teacher strike, in the mid-80s, which led to me actually being involved in school football, because I ended up taking a school team because there was nobody to take a school team. And there's loads of other guys like me came along and did that. But we lost a lot of kids when teachers, understandably so, said, I work Monday to Friday. I'm not working on a Saturday morning. Understandably so. But if you go back before your time, but your dad will tell you this, but back to the 60s and the 70s, it was school teachers that took school teams. And eventually they said, yeah. So that's 2 big things. So what the SFA then have to do is come up and think, well, how are we going to solve this problem? And they haven't.
No, they've not solved it. Yeah.
That's a problem.
So what's happened, Jim?
Yeah.
A lot of school teams no longer exist. And that's a massive, massive problem.
Also, football's become a bit of a middle-class sport these days, in that you need money to play it. Back in the day, you get a game for your local team. Nowadays, there's very few teams, and to get to these places, how are you going to get transport to this boys' club? It's 2 miles away at night time in the dark, and I need a car. What have you done for a car? So this is you do a number of podcasts, and the kind of decline of Scottish, and also while we're declining, other countries are going the opposite way. So what we're learning from them, something like small Denmark. This one. I mean, if you put a Danish team, a Swedish team, Icelandic team 40 years ago, it's a shoe-in. It's easy. And other nations who are not good at football or didn't invest in football, like the States or Japan or something like that. I mean, Japan, Switzerland, perfect example. Switzerland's got a population of 8-9 million, something like that. Qualified for most of the last, half a dozen Euros, World Cup, whatever it is. So what are they doing right that we're doing wrong? And what are we learning from them? Instead of that, we're getting Wally Collum in. That's what we're doing.
But Mike Mulroney searched the Australias and the Americas.
He searched everywhere, and then if you bring it back to Celtic, and again, I mean no disrespect to Johnny Hayes, he's a lovely guy. Everyone loves Johnny Hayes. Has he ever taken a B team before? No. Like, so do you know what? Somebody who's maybe taken a B team before understands the complexities of it and what you have to do and the challenges that can go with it. I saw a bit in England. It was either the half-time talk or the full-time talk. I don't know what game it was because I'm losing track. Maybe I'm getting a bit soonest here. Losing track of what games I've watched. And they had the Brentford manager in, Thomas Franks.
Yeah.
And somebody asked him a question about the size of the squad that you have in the Euros, and do certain players know that they'll be bit part players, which I thought was dead interesting. You know, is that you're coming here, but I'm not going to play you unless I'm desperate. Do you understand that? So you're kind of managing their expectations straight away. So if you've coming into your first managerial job, even though it's just the B team, surely you want experience and knowledge of what you're going to do, as opposed to just being kind of like, and I know he's done all the qualifications, all this kind of stuff, but you can't be experienced. And again, back to our transfer policy, this window, we have to bring in experienced players. It can't all be young guys who we think we can turn a pound on. So that was our circuitous way of answering the Tony Rollins question.
Some great points though, Jim, and many that we have discussed and will continue to discuss. Like, you know, you mentioned Japan there, and I remember talking about the evolution of the States and soccer over there, and how in the 70s it was never really taken seriously. And the biggest issue, according to Andy Lynch, former Celtic captain, was they didn't have a youth set up. They now do. They now produce their own players. And you look at, they're advancing nations when it comes to football. Japan's another great example that Liam has educated us on as well. And we are going backwards. And it's such a shame. It's a shame to see. Was it when Scottish football started getting into debt and we started just buying players from all over the globe? Probably. And then the less of a focus on the youth players coming through, not allowing them to develop. And like you say, that was an incredible scenario if you were Jock Stein at that period leading up to the 86 World Cup. Unbelievable group of players.
It's also, well, on that 86, when Jim Spence, who we've got a lot of time for, posted something last week, and there's a picture of the 86 team, and he said, if you added Maradona to that team, how far could they went? And you thought, aye, because in any team you've got, if you've got an exceptional talent, that exceptional talent will pull you through. You know, whether it's a Maradona or whether it's a Messi or a Platini or a Johan Cruyff or a Franz Beckenbauer, we don't have that. If you stuck, I mean, as again, if you stuck Messi in the Scotland team, you've got a chance. You know,
I never saw that tweet, but I like that. I like that.
Because we were talking about schools football there. I always remember that because schools football makes a huge difference. I always remember we played a school called St Anne's, who is pretty close to Celtic Park, and we beat 6-5 by them. And this young guy scored 6 goals. Robert Snodgrass, because he was bigger, physically better, technically very, very good, but the rest of his team weren't very good. He scored 6 goals and he won the game. There's your Maradona, there's your kind of Messi. If you have an exceptional talent, then you've got a chance. So how do you get the exceptional talent? And the point I think I was trying to make before is the fact that if you're a young Scottish guy, young Scottish lad, 17, 18-year-old, playing in 1984, you've got a great chance of playing for Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, and United. If you're the equivalent of that now, very, very much less of a chance of doing that. So you're lost to the game. There must be tons of kids lost to the game who never get the chance. And all you actually want as a player is to get a chance. Give me a chance. Give me a few games to show what I can do. And if I'm not good enough, fine. And that's the thing I always say about people who are subs all the time. It's really difficult for them unless you've had a certain number of games. You know.
Yeah, you're right.
Nothing. I just remembered there. Sorry, a bit of a tangent here. That after the game last week, I noticed something that said that Germany's XG was 2.5. So they scored 5 goals when it should have only been 2.5. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it wasn't that bad after all. And then a few days later, I saw Scotland's XG was 0.01. Right. And you're thinking, you know, the chances of Scotland scoring again must be like the equivalent of Finder's Life in Mars or something. Right. And then I thought to myself, hold on here, right? We scored a goal and the expected goals were point. So we did 100 times better than what we expected to do. But that. Yeah. So if Alan Morrison's listening is that the best? Are we the world's most successful goals to XG country in the world? Because 100 times better sounds quite good to me.
100 to 1 shot. No, you're right. I think it sounds great as well.
Germany were only 2, only double, but we were 100. I can't imagine. I mean, obviously, I don't know much about these XGs and the stats, but I can't imagine anyone else is such a low. Can you get lower than 0.01?
No,
but you actually scored a goal.
Low bar. Exactly.
I know. So 100 times better, Scotland.
Your Jim Spence question. I'm going to twist it a wee bit and ask you something before we move on, Jim.
Right.
Take out Maradona from that equation. What about a peak Dalglish? Because Dalglish was just coming to the end there. He almost obviously made the squad. There was talk around him and Ferguson having a falling out. Peak Dalglish in that squad.
Don't know because of the position he played. People talk about world class. What's your definition of world class? Which was your definition? I'm asking you a question now.
I always say this. I think it's someone who could play on the world stage, and the only competition is the World Cup. So even if you are looking at European class players, I think to be a world class player, you need to play on the world stage.
Well, my definition, I've said for years, is that if you had a football live aid, right, some huge event, you're going to raise money for whatever it is, famine or whatever, and 2 squads were going to play each other. So you've got squad of 18. If you're in those squads, you're world class. If you're not in those squads, you're no world class. And if you go back to the 60s and the 70s, the Lisbon Lions say Jimmy Johnson's one of those teams and Tommy Gemmell's in one of those teams.
Yeah.
I don't think Bobby Murdoch is in one of those teams, even though I think people thought he was the main guy. But I don't think if somebody was picking those 2 squads, I don't think they'd pick Bobby Murdoch at the time. This is quite a kind of against circuitous kind of question. So if you go to the current day and you say who's world class, we'll be back maybe 20 years. Would Larson be in those 2 squads? I think he would. I think he would scrape into those 2 squads. Dalglish definitely. Souness definitely back in the day. But if you're picking those, we're going to pick 2 teams, 2 squads of 18 to play each other for the football live aid, whatever it is just now. Now, who's in those teams? And if you can't get in those teams, I don't think you're world class. That's my very simple kind of definition.
That's incredible. Incredible. We have gone on a few tangents. I'm just going to throw it in there. Before the World Cup in 1986, there was a vote with one of the top tier magazines of the time, maybe World Soccer, in relation to the greatest player in the world. Maradona won it. And you know who was in the top 5? True story, going into the World Cup 1986. Dariusz Jankowski, who at that time was being chased by Inter Milan, ended up at Celtic. Was he world class?
We chased him.
We chased him, aye. Absolutely. It's happening again, isn't it? Jelly and ice cream ordered. Durban culture. I don't know what's happening over there. But as long as Celtic do not become complacent, that is the main priority that we've been talking about today. Robert Arbuckle, Kieran Tierney is now confirmed to be out of the Euros. Felt really sorry for him, Jim. I know there's been a lot of talk around him. It put a lot of people off. I seen after the injury on Wednesday night, a lot of people coming into the comments saying, right, we can't sign this guy because he can't stay fit. It was it was unfortunate, wasn't it, on Wednesday night?
Again, I think getting back to that mental toughness thing, obviously he's a fantastic number of seasons, but punctured by injuries. And that's the thing, when you put it at that kind of level, we've got no idea. We've got no idea at all what it was like mentally to play at that kind of level, to know when you get an injury, that could be out for a year or whatever. So he keeps coming back, and he must be just very frustrated with the fact that he keeps getting these injuries. I don't think it would qualify as one of these niggling things that, it's happened again. It just seems to be a kind of another different type of injury. But mentally, it must be really difficult to try and get over that, because he's one of our, let's call him, elite players that we've got in that squad. And without the elite players, they're the guys that are carrying the not so elite players in the team. So it's a shame that he's out, because the game on Sunday is obviously going to win or bust. So shame.
It is a shame. You want to see the bet, like going back to the Dalglish thing. I wanted to see Dalglish at the 86 World Cup. 1974 World Cup, George Conley breaks his ankle against Bâle in the quarterfinals of the European Cup, doesn't make it to the World Cup. His entire life might have been different had he gone there. Who knows? Paul Smith, buying Acsom tickets and putting a discount code 1690, the price trebled. Well, Paul, yes, the discount code actually is Acsom 1888. Few tickets, not many left. for Thursday night in Glasgow. We have Alan Thompson, Jackie McNamara and Stan Petrov on a brilliant bill. And I'm really looking forward to it. So come and join us. The ticket link is underneath this video. And the code is Acsom 1888. Henrik McLarson. When you're winning at Monopoly, you don't stop at houses, you buy hotels. Okay? I agree
Best comment of the day. Best comment of the day.
Brilliant. Actually. Love it. And Ida, 8 million, not for me, says Plunge McNugget. Norwich are keeping Ida, says Michael Ross. And Martin T says, first look at other options for the same money as Ida to see if there is better out there. I don't know what anybody would think is better, Jim, in terms of a player who's come in, already proved what he can do, shows he's got the mentality. Buy him.
It's a conundrum, I think, because said last week, no Ida, no double. Basically, it's as simple as that. No Scotland, no party, no Ida, no double. What I said last week is I think we should push the boat out a wee bit. I don't think we should go mad in this. So I think if you said to any Celtic fan, we can get Ida for 3 million, buy him. Ida for 12, nah. The numbers in there, in between there somewhere. And I think people thought 6 is the answer. And I thought, well, if he's 6, we have to go to 7, go to 7. 8, you're starting to push beyond that. And it's an interesting discussion, I think, because if we don't get him and the manager wants him, and we end up with somebody who's not as good as them, we're back to playing John McGinn stories again. That well, for an extra million, we could. But I suppose at some point you have to draw a line to say, nah, it's too much. But there's no guarantee who you get. And also, because there's so much money, clubs are going to say, well, you've got this money, so you can afford. Whether you choose to pay, you can afford it if you choose to, and therefore we know who. If I'm Norwich, we know how much money you've got. Yeah, you can afford him. You can afford another couple of £1 million or so. So I think maybe yes to the £8 million, but it's an interesting one because it's at the margins, I think, and you can go into all these things saying that we don't more than X, but then when somebody comes along thinking, well, we're willing to go a wee bit more than X, how much is the wee bit more than X? Is it £1 million more than X? Is it £2 million more than X? And we tend, as football fans, to dismiss £1 million as if it's nothing. That's not £1 million. It's £1 million. It's a lot of money. You know, yeah, in the context, we've got a lot of money, but you can't be wasteful of that money. I'd say on balance, if it's 8, I would go for him because I think he's going to be a player. And I think the manager can develop him. He's a current international. I think, again, what do I know as a football fan? But 6 to me sounded kind of like the top that I would be prepared to go to get him. But if it's 8, I've said push the boat a wee bit. Yes, yeah. That was another roundabout way of saying, aye, okay, go for it. 8.
Brilliant. I got a yes from JP yesterday, a yes from Jim Orr today. Thank you. No Ida, no double. I like that as well. Thanks everybody for getting involved in the chat. Yes, we're in the pre-season. We're not talking about Celtic games or Celtic signings yet, but we will still be here every day to talk about Celtic. Tonight, This Is Acsom is joined by special guest Tosh McKinley. And I've got to say, make your own mind up, but it's certainly the funniest episode that we've seen in the first 4. So join us tonight at 6 o'clock for that one. It's going to be a cracker. And if you want to come along to that gig, as I say, half-price tickets for Acsom viewers. Acsom 1888 is the discount code. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. And thank you once again, Jim Orr, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Cheers, Paul.